Kuranda bat carer Rebecca Koller dedicates each waking moment of her day to rescuing, caring for, and rehabilitating hundreds of bats. Ms. Koller said she had more than 450 bats in her care after the recent heat event, but she now has almost 600. Photo: Michelle Kraatz looks after orphaned flying foxes. Supplied: Michelle Kraatz. At this quantity there's very little sleep. The volume means that it's a huge amount of work. You have to check the health of their wings, so you have to actually physically look at their wings, times that by 500, everything, just times it by 500. Ms. Koller said taking care of the animals could be a challenge. To chop up fruit, it's a very menial, basic task, but it takes 4 hours and that has to be done every single day, she said. Every single food tray you put in there has to be taken out and scrubbed in the morning, and the aviaries have to be scrubbed. Central Queensland bat carer Michelle Kraatz has opened her home to hundreds of bats over the past 5 years. It's doing their smoothies, it's their treatments twice a day and getting them to their vet appointments, and then rescues and so forth, she said. The orphan bats will be often babies and they'll stay actually in your home, and they go through different stages in your house. They might start in a cot or in a basket, and then they go to a play gym as they get more active. Once they start learning to fly, then they go into creche, which is kindergarten for bats. I have a flight cage, which is about 12 meters by 3 across. So they will be in your house until they go into their creche mode. It's very rewarding, Ms. Kraatz said. The benefits outweighed the difficulty of the job. They play hide and seek, peekaboo, they like to pull things apart. They'll take things off your head and laugh and then run across the cage because they want you to chase them. I've just got so many stories about little things that they do or big things that they do, and they just never cease to amazing me. The most rewarding part for Ms. Koller was returning the bats to the wild. That's the best moment because that's what all the hard work is for, and it is hard work, she said. It's emotionally taxing, physically taxing doing this amount of animals. But the second you actually watch them fly free and start hopping around trees and interacting with a wild colony, it just makes every second worthwhile. A declining population, around 23,000 spectacled flying foxes, about a third of the species population in Australia, died in the Cairns area towards the end of last year during an extreme heat wave. Ms. Koller said the heat wave came on top of a series of devastating events. We've had a starvation event, they didn't get enough food, so we had all these pups that were born malnourished, she said. Because there wasn't enough food out there, they were feeding off wild tobacco, and so we saw cleft palate syndrome. A lot of pups were born with a deformity. We had tick season on top of that and then the heat event, which knocked out a third of the population. Ms. Koller said she had watched the bats decline each year. This year we lost 23,000, it's a third of the population that remains in the wild. That was an absolutely devastating loss, she said. It's really hard to recover from because they only have one pup, generally, a year. You're just watching them slowly disappear in front of your eyes. The population now is half of what it was when I first started working with them. You hear about a species that could become extinct in your lifetime, but to actually watch it happen is really frightening. Australasian Bat Society spokesman Damien Milne said there had been a 70% decline in the spectacled flying fox population. Between 2004 and 2017, the spectacled flying fox population is estimated to have declined from 250,270 individuals to 75,347 individuals, Dr. Milne said. Approximately one-third of the remaining population is estimated to have died in the heat wave in North Queensland in November 2018. Carers will often forget about themselves. Ms. Koller said carers were encouraged to seek counseling after the heatwave event. Carers have been known to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder after events like that, and they have a particularly high rate of suicide. Yes, they raise the animals and they can rehabilitate the animals, but more often than not they see animals die and suffer, and it can affect them quite profoundly. Ms. Koller said wildlife care groups acted as a support network and played an important role in the well-being of individual carers during challenging times. Bat carers Australia-wide all know each other, they're connected to each other and will help as well, she said. During the events, the carers will often forget about themselves completely. Even basic things like keeping themselves hydrated in the heat, they don't even consider. So that's where the group comes in and actually starts to look after each other. Ms. Koller said some carers decided to take a break after the mass death event. We've got about 30 carers roughly, and that ranges from Mission Beach all the way up to Cooktown, she said. We'll see if we can get some new people on board and get people training and hopefully not have to put them through what we just did, because it really was a baptism of fire. Animal-related occupation suicide on the rise. Although no specific statistic exists for suicide rates in animal carers, the Australian Veterinary Association, AVA, said veterinarians were up to 4 times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. University of Queensland's Rebecca Koller said, based on her research, the suicide rate across all animal-related occupations was alarming. We need more resources to explore the crises faced by those in all animal-related occupations and to develop tools, programs, resources that will assist in all types of animal caregiver roles. Dr. Scottney suggested the use of contextualized toolboxes containing useful resources to encourage a proactive approach to compassion fatigue and occupational stress. Resources to support the mental health and well-being of those animal carers who are struggling, she said. These resources are slowly being accrued by small pockets across some industries, but it needs to be focused much wider, and we could certainly use more champions to help continue work in this area. Dr. Scottney conducted a study on compassion fatigue in animal health care workers. Often people who are carers and go into those caregiving roles spend a lot of their time looking after animals that are traumatized, Dr. Scottney said. We know that in all caregiving occupations, when we are giving so much of ourselves and taking on that trauma that's suffered by those in our care, we can suffer what's called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is made up of a number of different things, which includes burnout and also post-traumatic stress type symptoms. Dr. Scottney also said the negative stigma around pest species could make carers feel isolated. There's reduced support for those people who are caring for them, they're not well understood, she said. So they are victimized in a way, I suppose, for what they believe and trying to protect these animals that others in the general population may consider to be pest species. They feel like they're out on their own, and I think that's a very real thing for our bat carers. We don't need you to love them, Ms. Koller said. She understood that bats had a negative reputation. You're not going to get everyone to love bats. As much as you try, it's not going to happen, and that could go for any animal species, she said. Without them, the rainforest will cease to exist. A Queensland Department of Environment and Science, DES, spokesman said flying foxes were critical to maintaining the health of native forests. They play an important role in dispersing seeds and pollinating flowering plants, the spokesman said. Pollen sticks to their furry bodies, and as they crawl from flower to flower, and fly from tree to tree, they pollinate the flowers and aid in the production of honey. This reinforces the gene pool and health of native forests. Ms. Kraatz said people mistakenly think that all bats carry deadly diseases. A lot of people think that every single bat has Lassa virus. Less than 0.1% of the whole population of microbats and flying foxes have it, she said. There's just so much fear-mongering and misinformation, and, unfortunately, a lot of people believe it. They love a cuddle photo. Michelle Kraatz converts her clothesline into a sunbathing area for orphaned bats. Supplied, Michelle Kraatz. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, there are 487 scientists, researchers, naturalists, environmental consultants, carers and other people with an interest in bats. Central Queensland carer Tanelle Fletcher decided to become a bat carer to fulfill her childhood dream. After a series of 3 injections and a blood test, Ms. Fletcher and her 8-year-old daughter were given the green light to bring bats into their home. "I just bought one of those little play gems, they like to hang off those, they like to hang off you, they like to snuggle, you get to feed them little bottles. It's just like having a newborn basically. They're actually not the vicious, scary animals that people think they are." Daughter Tia Lee Fletcher said she was scared of the needles, but excited to look after the bats. "I like them because they like to snuggle with you and talk to you, they're like little babies," she said. "I say it's alright if you don't like them, but I do. They're not scary, they're cute." What to do if you find an injured bat? A Queensland Day spokesman said members of the public should not handle bats without taking the necessary precautions. "Catching diseases from bats is extremely unlikely," he said. "Australian bat Lassa virus can only be caught from untreated bites or scratches from infected bats." If you find a sick, injured or orphaned insectivorous bat, do not touch it. Contact your local wildlife care organization or the RSPCA/QLD. They will put you in contact with a licensed and fully vaccinated wildlife rescuer who is trained to handle and care for wildlife. Contact Aaron. Similar more stories from Queensland.